looking at him, I maybe got to put a little more respect on Karl Malone's
he was a monster physically.
career.
And he's like the third leading scorer all time or so. Like, I can't take nothing away from his game, but he was a dirtbag.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a game without John Stockton.
The term is
that too.
That's the term.
That's
not dirtbag.
A rapist, well, and then a dirtbag after that. Father, dirtbag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Compounded all.
Yeah, but it's, yeah.
But the NBA still called him up for the weekend. Said, yo, dog, come on.
In 2025, the NBA is still celebrating a man who allegedly violated a 13-year-old and got away with it for 40 years. The man is Karl Malone, the mailman, the league's third all-time leading scorer, two-time MVP, Hall of Famer, and symbol of blue-collar grit. But beneath the highlight reels and the statues lies a story the league has never wanted to confront. In 1983, when Malone was a 20-year-old student at Louisiana Tech, he impregnated Gloria Bell, who was only 13 at the time. Blood tests later confirmed with 99.3% certainty that he was the father of her baby. Yet Malone refused to take responsibility, denying paternity and fighting even the $125 per week support payment the court ordered. He earned millions in the NBA while a young girl in rural Louisiana was left to raise his son alone.
Look up Karl Malone and what happened with him. I didn't know the kid went on to play football for 5 seasons. I didn't know that. Yeah. Karl Malone was 20 years old, impregnated a 13-year-old, got the away from her, wanted nothing to do with the baby. The story's about, well, he was about to be a pro athlete, so take from that.
Demetress Bell, the child born from that relationship, would grow up to become an NFL offensive lineman, but for most of his life, he had no contact with his father. When the two finally met, Demetress was 17. By then, Malone was a multimillionaire and national icon. The young man wanted connection. Instead, Malone allegedly told him, "It's too late for me to be your father." The words landed like a lifetime sentence, and demetress later said he treated the whole situation as if his mother had simply gone to a donor clinic. The encounter said everything about Malone's sense of accountability.
That speaks to the difference between the NBA and NFL.
How?
Because Michael Irvin got straight dropped off of every thing in the NFL.
Off of an accusation of harassment. Not even physically touching anybody.
They wouldn't let him be a part of none of the festivities. Karl Malone out there, like, it's proven that this is your kid.
There's progeny running around that is proof of the act of.
You know what I'm saying?
But here's where it gets worse. 2 decades after that first scandal, in 2004, Malone, then 40 years old and playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, allegedly made racially charged, intimate, inappropriate remarks to Vanessa Bryant, Kobe Bryant's wife. According to reports from ESPN and other outlets, Malone was wearing a cowboy hat and boots when Vanessa asked, "Hey cowboy, what are you hunting?" His reply, by multiple accounts, was, "I'm hunting for little Mexican girls." Vanessa, who was of Mexican descent, was stunned. The situation escalated later that evening when Malone reportedly told her over the phone to come sit next to him and give him a hug because it would land on magazine covers. Kobe confronted him immediately. At first, Malone allegedly admitted the conversation had happened, telling Kobe, "You know me, man." But when all four, Kobe and Vanessa, Malone and his wife Kay, joined a call to settle it, Malone denied everything. The friendship between the two families disintegrated overnight. Despite the seriousness of these allegations, the NBA did nothing. No investigation, no fine, no public reprimand. Contrast that with how swiftly the league moved to punish players like Kyrie Irving for a social media post. Kyrie was suspended within days, but Malone, who faced credible claims of predatory and racially offensive behavior, continued to enjoy full honors and open invitations to league events. The message was clear. The rules of accountability depended on who you were.
I realized being up here that I'm very humble, and I didn't make this journey alone. And it's kind of bittersweet, but I saved that to the end. I just want to say to all the members of the Hall of Fame, before me, be after me, I'm honored.
In February 2023, nearly 20 years after the Vanessa Bryant incident, the league went a step further. At All-Star Weekend in Salt Lake City, the NBA invited Malone to serve as a judge in the slam dunk contest, celebrating him in front of a national audience. Fans were furious. Reporters asked if he wanted to address the backlash. His answer was blunt, "I'm not discussing any of that. I don't care. That's my life, that's my personal life, and I'll deal with that like I've had to deal with everything." The arrogance was breathtaking. Even when confronted with the most serious accusations, he offered no acknowledgement, no apology, just defiance. We have to pause here, because this isn't ancient history. This is happening while the league brands itself as the most progressive in professional sports. We've seen players lose sponsorships over a single controversial tweet, yet the mailman, who impregnated a 13-year-old and made lewd remarks to a teammate's wife, still gets standing ovations in Utah. It raises a question that hangs over every highlight reel. How far is the league willing to go to protect one of its own?
What do you think about when Karl Malone gets included on teams like this, in games like this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's top 20 greatest players to play.
You think Karl Malone is?
The silence wasn't just from officials. For years, even other players seemed unaware of Malone's past. The story had circulated in whispers among journalists and local fans, but it was rarely discussed on air. Then came August 2025, when Patrick Beverley, a 12-year veteran known for his blunt honesty, was recording an episode of the Pat Bev podcast with Roan. They were running through an all-time player draft when Beverley named Malone in his top 20. His co-host stopped him. Would he still rank Malone that high if he knew about the off-court scandals? Beverley admitted he didn't. When Roan explained that Malone had impregnated a 13-year-old while he was 20, Beverley froze. After a long pause, he said, "I need a full timeout." The clip went viral. You can hear the disbelief in his voice as he asked, "When you say a 13-year-old pregnant, was he 16? And then, learning the truth, just muttered, "Wow, Roan, that threw me off. Is this true and documented? I didn't know this at all." Beverley, a man who spent 12 years inside the league, had no idea about one of the darkest scandals in NBA history. His shock mirrored the audience's. For many fans, that was the first time they'd heard the full story.
Fool.
Well,
I need a full timeout. You wait a second. I have a question.
talk to me.
When you say, when you said 13-year-old pregnant, was he 16?
I think it was a grown-up.
The ripple effect was immediate. Younger players began speaking out in subtle ways. Victor Wembanyama, the French superstar hailed as the future of the league, shared a viral post reacting to the NBA's birthday message from Malone with a meme saying, "Police, lock him up because he needs to be under the jail." It was a small gesture, but a telling one. Wemby, just 21 at the time, understood the optics. By publicly disassociating from Malone, he was drawing a generational line. The new era of players wasn't willing to pretend ignorance. Meanwhile, the older generation, the commentators, executives, and Hall of Fame peers, remained mostly silent. The same league that fined players for minor conduct violations had no problem keeping Malone front and center. He'd been honored at the 2023 All-Star Game, standing beside LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as part of a ceremony celebrating the top scorers in league history. The crowd in Salt Lake City cheered, unaware or unconcerned about what that moment represented. The optics were surreal, a man accused of violating a minor being celebrated as a symbol of excellence, right next to two players widely praised for their social activism.
Oh, it's in the back of my mind every time I think about him.
I didn't even know this. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's my thing, Ron. I didn't know this at all. So, like...
You never heard this?
No.
Disappointing. In Karl Malone, not you.
How did it come to this? The answer seems to lie in the league's long history of selective memory. Malone was a franchise savior for Utah, a cornerstone of NBA marketing in the 1990s, and a hero in a state that adored him. When the allegations surfaced in the 1980s, local reporters treated them as gossip rather than crimes. Gloria Bell's family declined to press charges, believing that a court case would ruin Malone's career and bring unwanted attention to their small community. The NBA never opened its own inquiry. By the time the public learned the full details decades later, the statute of limitations had expired.
Yeah, that's bad.
Is it true and this is documented?
True and documented.
Was the exercise drafting these guys or the exercise to Karl Malone? That's my next question.
Karl Malone just kind of, when you're having these types of drafts, Karl Malone, what, second leading scorer of all time?
Yet Malone's response over the years has been telling. He's never expressed remorse beyond a few vague comments about mistakes of youth. In a 2018 interview, he said he speaks with his son Demetress nearly every day, a claim the younger man has never confirmed publicly. It sounds more like image repair than reconciliation. Insiders close to the family say Malone has provided financial support in recent years, but still refuses to publicly acknowledge what really happened. The media's complicity can't be ignored either. For years, network coverage focused on his training habits, his discipline, his role model status. Local Utah papers published glowing stories about his charity work, rarely mentioning his past. Even after the Vanessa Bryant incident, coverage was cautious. few journalists wanted to challenge one of the most powerful figures in Utah sports history. One columnist who tried was reportedly barred from a press event at Malone's request.
He was 20. And he got a 13-year-old pregnant. That doesn't seem cool to me. But yeah, you could draft him if you want.
Behind the scenes, executives knew the optics were bad. According to several former team employees, internal discussions about Malone's image resurfaced whenever the league planned major events in Utah. But each time, the conclusion was the same. The scandal was too old, too complicated, too risky to reopen. The strategy was silence. That silence began to crack after the Beverly podcast went viral. Social media users started resurfacing court documents, old AP stories, and interviews with Gloria Bell's family. Hashtags calling for the NBA to distance itself from Malone trended for days. Sponsors who had worked with him quietly removed his likeness from their websites. The league, however, maintained its stance. No comment. The contrast between the NBA's rhetoric and its actions has become impossible to ignore. This is the same organization that publicly supports victims of abuse and positions itself as a leader in social responsibility. Yet it continues to glorify a man whose behavior would end any modern player's career overnight. When asked why the league has never addressed Malone's scandals, one former communications director told an outlet, "Because nobody wants to be the one to take down a legend."
But what about his off-the-court stuff? You know, does that factor in at all?
No, I really don't know a lot of off-the-court horse stuff about Karl.
He got a 13-year-old pregnant. I'm going to go Oscar Robertson and Julius Erving.
The hypocrisy has only deepened in recent years. As new fans learn about Malone's past, they're asking how a league that prides itself on accountability could overlook a case like this for 4 decades. It's not just about one man's actions, it's about an entire institution's willingness to protect him. The question isn't whether Malone was a great player, it's whether greatness should excuse everything else. You can trace the pattern through every stage of his life, from the 1,980 court filings he ignored, to the 2004 harassment allegations he denied, to the 2023 All-Star celebration he accepted without apology. Every time he had a chance to take responsibility, he chose silence or defiance. Every time the NBA had a chance to confront him, it chose convenience. And now, in 2025, the reckoning has reached the players themselves. Beverly's stunned reaction wasn't just personal disbelief, it was symbolic of a larger awakening. For a generation that grew up idolizing highlights instead of headlines, learning the truth about Malone felt like betrayal. Even younger stars like Wembanyama and Ja Morant's peers began posting cryptic messages about accountability and the cost of hero worship. The discussion spread beyond sports podcasts to mainstream news, yet through it all, Malone remains publicly unbothered. When approached by reporters in his home state earlier this year, he waved off questions with the same phrase he's used for decades: whatever. To his defenders, it's proof he's moved on. To everyone else, it's proof he's never cared.
Welcoming Karl to the Hall of Fame is his childhood hero and fellow legend from the state of Louisiana, Willis Reed, class of 1982. Ladies and gentlemen, Karl Malone.
That's what makes the league's stance so unsettling, because if the NBA continues to honor Karl Malone, it's not ignorance anymore, it's complicity. When Beverly asked on air, "Is this true and documented?" he spoke for millions who'd believe the myth of the mailman. And when he finally muttered, "I need a full timeout," he captured what many of us felt in that moment: disbelief, anger, and exhaustion at how long the story has been hidden in plain sight. So how did the NBA let this slide for decades? And why, in 2023, did they still put Malone on stage at All-Star Weekend, right next to LeBron James? The question lingers like an echo, because somewhere between the cheers and the silence, the truth about Karl Malone and the league that protected him is still unfolding. The answer lies in how the NBA treats its legends, and it's not pretty. When the league brought Karl Malone back in 2023 for All-Star Weekend, it wasn't just another cameo. It was an official stamp of approval. He stood center court in Salt Lake City beside LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the spotlight gleaming off the gold trim of his jacket as if time had cleansed everything he'd done. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, when reporters pressed him about the backlash, Malone brushed them off with 6 words that said it all: "I don't care. That's my life." No apology, no reflection, just defiance from a man who knew the machine would protect him.
It's the kid 17 years later, 17 years old, says, "Listen, dog, it's too late for me to too late for me to be a dad to you. You got to go get it out the mud, get it on your own."
That's
like Karl Malone.
He's
talks about a piece. Yeah, like it's a piece. Big Mac. Yeah.
Yo, it's food.
Now, the thing about that is...
Big Mac.
Yeah, piece of Big Mac.
Meanwhile, behind the applause, the league was feeling pressure from inside its own walls. The younger generation of players was watching, and some weren't staying quiet. Victor Wembanyama, the 7'4" prodigy already being billed as the future of the sport, made a bold move in July 2025. When the NBA's official account wished Malone a happy birthday, Wemby shared a meme calling for Malone's arrest, captioned with a line that left little doubt about his opinion. "Police, lock him up because he needs to be under the jail." That post ricocheted across social media. Within hours, it had millions of views and forced the league's public relations team into emergency mode. They stayed silent, but everyone knew what it meant. One of the brightest young stars had just publicly condemned one of the league's sacred icons. What's even harder to digest is that Malone's actions didn't just go unpunished, they were profitable. Over the course of his career, he earned well over $100 million, endorsement deals included. Yet he fought against paying a mere $125 a week in child support for years, insisting the amount was too high. The irony is staggering. While Malone was cashing checks large enough to buy small towns, the mother of his first son was fighting for basic groceries. It's not just hypocrisy. It's a window into how easily the wealthy can rewrite morality when the scoreboard favors them. The double standard becomes impossible to ignore when we compare Malone's treatment to what's happened to others. In 2023, John Morant was suspended 8 games for brandishing a weapon on a live stream. Kyrie Irving was benched and fined after sharing a controversial link online. Both incidents were met with swift, decisive punishment. But Malone, the man accused of violating a 13-year-old and harassing a teammate's wife, faced nothing. Not a single game missed, not a single fine. We can't help but wonder what that says about the values the league claims to hold.
I want to get off All-Star Weekend, but I do have to laugh at this because this is funny. Well, actually, this part is not funny. So there's a statue of Karl Malone outside of Utah. Now,
that was where I was going with that.
Whispers from inside NBA headquarters suggest this wasn't accidental. Several insiders who've worked with the league's legal team claim that attorneys quietly warned executives never to revisit Malone's past. The logic, according to one former employee, was simple. Opening that door could expose other legends to scrutiny, unleashing a public relations crisis that would shake the foundation of the Hall of Fame itself. I know this has ever been confirmed, of course, but the pattern speaks for itself. When a superstar is profitable, the line between justice and business becomes dangerously thin. There's another layer here, one most fans never see. During the late 1990s, when the Malone scandal first flickered in small-town courtrooms, the NBA was experiencing its biggest growth in global markets. The league couldn't afford a scandal involving one of its most visible stars. Marketing executives, according to one retired PR consultant, made the call to control the narrative. The result was decades of silence. Documentaries skipped over the lawsuits. Anniversary montages showed only the dunks. A rewritten history in real time. And yet cracks are forming. Younger journalists are starting to dig through archives, unearthing forgotten interviews and court filings. New podcasts have aired segments about Malone's past, forcing uncomfortable conversations among longtime fans who'd rather remember the mailman for his turnaround jump shot than his court cases. The more we look, the clearer it becomes that the league didn't just overlook the scandals, it built around them. In Utah, where Malone remains a local hero, the debate has become impossible to ignore. His statue still stands tall outside Vivint Arena, gleaming bronze against the skyline, a symbol of athletic excellence that hides an ugly truth. Protesters have gathered there in recent months, holding signs asking why the NBA continues to honor a man accused of such disturbing acts. Some longtime season ticket holders have joined them, while others defend him as a product of a different time. But what does that even mean in a world that now demands accountability from everyone else? Today, that bronze statue still stands outside Vivint Arena, a monument not just to a player, but to an entire system that rewards silence and forgets victims. It gleams in the sunlight, a reminder of how far power and denial can go when they work together. But how long can the league ignore the truth before the next generation forces it into the open? What other secrets are hiding behind those championship banners, waiting for the right moment to surface? We'll leave you with that thought. Because if the mailman's story tells us anything, it's that history has a way of catching up, no matter how long it takes. So what do you think? Should the NBA finally confront the legacy it's been protecting, or has that time already passed? Until next time, stay curious, stay loud, and never stop asking the questions they don't want answered.